Carl Jung once said that being born is not enough. We must be reborn again and again throughout life. This rebirth does not happen randomly or without meaning. Rather, it unfolds through deep internal processes that gradually reshape the way we perceive ourselves and the world around us. Often, these transformations take place without us being fully aware of them, at least not right away. Jung spoke of something he called individuation, the journey through which a person sheds what was imposed upon them by society, culture, or upbringing in order to reconnect with their true essence. And this process of inner rebirth doesn't occur just once. It happens many times, at various stages of our existence. Each time it does, it brings with it profound shifts that might initially seem confusing, disorienting, or even painful. There comes a moment when something inside you begins to change. You can't pinpoint exactly when it started, but you can feel it. It's subtle, like a whisper echoing from somewhere deep inside, reminding you that you're no longer the person you once were, but you're not yet who you're meant to become either. It's an odd sensation, like standing between two worlds, the familiar past and the uncertain future. You look in the mirror and see the same face, but something underneath is shifting. It's not visible, yet it's undeniably present. Your thoughts, your emotions, your perspective, they're all being quietly, steadily transformed. This is the beginning of a spiritual rebirth, a deep, often solitary process that takes place just before life offers you a new and unexpected path. One of the first signs of this internal transformation is resistance to change, and the emotional exhaustion that comes with it. It's not that you don't want things to shift. In fact, a part of you knows that change is essential, but another part clings tightly to what's known and familiar. Your mind begins to find excuses, trying to keep you anchored in your current reality, even though you feel it no longer serves you. You might start justifying situations that deep down you know have become toxic or stagnant. Relationships that once nurtured you now feel draining. Habits that once comforted you now seem meaningless. A routine that once offered structure now feels like a prison. And though you try to ignore it, the discomfort only grows. You start feeling a strange kind of tiredness, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally too. It's as if you're carrying an invisible weight that grows heavier with each passing day. What once excited you no longer brings joy. Conversations that once sparked your interest now feel hollow and forced. And deep within, you begin to question everything. Are you truly living the life you want? Or merely the life you thought you were supposed to live? But here's the crucial truth. This inner weariness is not a sign that something is broken inside you. On the contrary, it's the first indication that something within you is awakening. The version of yourself that once fits so neatly into your current life is beginning to fall apart. Not because you've failed, but because you're evolving. And although the uncertainty that comes with change can make you doubt everything, this is the moment where you must trust the process the most. Because this kind of transformation doesn't happen overnight. It begins quietly, in the background of your everyday life. It starts with small signals. The discomfort you feel in places where you once felt at ease, the frustration at situations you used to tolerate, the growing sense that something just doesn't sit right anymore. These subtle signs build up slowly, until eventually they can't be ignored. You try to carry on with your routine. You try to hold on to what's familiar, but something inside of you resists. What once made you feel secure now brings unease. You may find yourself inexplicably drained by environments that used to energize you. Conversations that once felt natural now seem forced or even unbearable. And the strangest part is that you can't quite explain why. You might begin to feel like you're trapped between two versions of yourself, who you've been and who you're becoming. The life you've known still exists, but it no longer fits. And although a new path seems to be calling, it's still unclear, undefined. There are moments when you feel a deep urge to make drastic changes. Yet at the same time, fear grips you. One part of you knows transformation is necessary, while the other can't bear to let go of what's known. This internal tug-of-war can take a toll not just on your emotions, but on your body as well. You may start to experience unexplained fatigue, disrupted sleep, mood swings, or moments of deep introspection that you can't quite put into words. You may feel distant from the people around you, not because there's been conflict, but because something inside of you no longer resonates with them the way it once did. Even your perception of time begins to shift. Days might drag on endlessly or pass in the blink of an eye, leaving you feeling like nothing meaningful is happening, even though something profound is taking place beneath the surface. On the outside, everything might appear the same, but internally, your soul is moving, stirring, transforming. This is when many people instinctively cling even harder to what they know. They seek distractions, immerse themselves in work, busy themselves with obligations, anything to avoid the discomfort. They push forward without asking too many questions, hoping the feeling will go away. But no matter how much you try to suppress it, that emptiness persists. It lingers as a quiet reminder that something no longer fits and that something greater is waiting to be discovered. The key in this moment is not to fight the discomfort, but to listen to it, to realize that this feeling of emotional fatigue and inner conflict is not a problem to be fixed, but a message, a signal that it's time to evolve. This is your inner voice calling you forward. It's telling you that you can't stay where you are, that it's time to let go of fear, to surrender to the unknown, and to trust that even if you don't yet understand where you're headed, this process is leading you toward a truer, more authentic version of yourself. The second internal transformation, the breaking away from everything that once defined you. After that first inner shift, where the cracks began to form in your old worldview, something very subtle, yet incredibly powerful, begins to happen. You start to sense that the things that used to define you, the ones you clung to so tightly as part of your identity, no longer hold the same weight. What once seemed essential for understanding who you are now feels less relevant, almost as if the foundation of yourself is slowly dissolving. The labels you once embraced so confidently, the roles you played in your family, your career title, your social status, your beliefs about what success should look like, and even how you interacted with others, suddenly begin to feel more like a cage than a truth. It's as if you're stepping outside of your own life, observing it from a completely new perspective. And from that place, with clearer eyes, you begin to see something profound. Many of the decisions you made along the way didn't actually come from your authentic self. They were shaped by the expectations of others, your family, your culture, your social circles, and by the subconscious programming you absorbed growing up. You followed paths that were laid out before you because you believed they were the right ones. But now, you're beginning to see the cracks in those beliefs. You realize that what you once thought was unchangeable was, in fact, just a mental construct, something you inherited, not something you chose. This is a critical point in your personal evolution. It's the moment when the illusion begins to crumble. And as unsettling as it may be, it's also an incredible opportunity. Because with that crumbling comes clarity. You might find yourself questioning your purpose in life. You might begin to reevaluate the dreams you've been chasing, only to discover that they no longer inspire you. Goals that once seemed so vital to your happiness now feel hollow, distant, or disconnected from who you're becoming. And yes, this can feel disorienting, even scary. That feeling of not knowing exactly where you're headed or who you are anymore might leave you feeling lost. But it's important to understand this. What you're experiencing isn't a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. That uncertainty is not a problem. It's an invitation. It's the doorway to uncovering what truly resonates with your inner self. What's fascinating about this shift is that it doesn't happen with a sudden dramatic event. It's not like you wake up one morning and decide to abandon everything you've ever known. Instead, it feels more like a slow erosion, something subtle that takes place within you, little by little. Each day, a small part of your old self begins to fade. A thought that once felt reassuring now feels limiting. A routine that used to comfort you now feels confining. You might continue working the same job, spending time with the same people, or living in the same home. Outwardly, things may appear unchanged, but internally, something has shifted. That sense of security you once drew from these familiar aspects of life now feels foreign, like it no longer belongs to you. And at this stage, many people report feeling an inner emptiness, a kind of identity void, as though they've lost their compass and are floating in the unknown. If you've ever felt this way, know this: it's completely natural. You're not losing yourself. You are shedding an outdated version of who you once believed yourself to be. And while this may feel unsettling at first, it's an essential part of your spiritual rebirth. You are not breaking down. You are rebuilding. You're letting go of the facade to uncover a deeper truth that has always been within you, waiting for the space to emerge. As this detachment from your former identity deepens, you begin to notice something remarkable. The things that used to trigger you, hurt you, or define your emotional responses no longer hold the same power over you. Other people's opinions, society's demands, or even your own internal pressure to succeed start to lose their grip. It's as if layer by layer, the conditioning that once shaped your world is peeling away, revealing a more honest version of you, one that has always existed, just hidden beneath the noise. Your perception of the world begins to shift as well. Conversations you used to engage in now feel shallow. The roles you used to play in social settings start to feel scripted, mechanical. You realize that many of your interactions were driven by the desire to fit in, to fulfill a part, to play a character in a story you never wrote for yourself. And suddenly, you're no longer interested in playing along. You feel like an outsider in your own life, witnessing the old narrative from a completely new dimension. During this phase, it's common to feel nostalgic for the person you used to be. You might remember times when you felt more certain of your identity, more in control. Back then, you didn't question much. You followed the rules, checked the boxes, did what was expected. But that certainty, you now realize, was a comfort born of illusion. And the truth is, it was never really you. The discomfort you feel now isn't a sign that something's wrong. It's the space where something new, something more real, can be born. Another sign of this inner shift is the fading importance of the roles that once gave your life meaning. If you once measured your worth by how successful you were in your career, how much praise you received, or how many people approved of you, those markers now feel hollow. You begin to ask yourself, did any of that truly fulfill me? And in the silence that follows that question, you hear an answer you've never allowed yourself to speak out loud before. You realize you are carrying dreams that weren't yours, chasing goals that didn't align with your soul, living a life that didn't reflect your essence. And that realization brings grief, not for what you're losing, but for what was never real to begin with. You mourn the time you spent living someone else's version of your life. You grieve the energy invested in building an identity that now feels like a mask. This is where many people are tempted to turn back, to cling to the comfort of the known, no matter how false it may be. But here lies your most important decision: to stay in the illusion, or to step into the unknown and begin again. Because that feeling of emptiness, it's not a void, it's a sacred space, a clean canvas, the fertile soil where your truest self can finally grow. And in the middle of all this confusion and transformation, something surprising starts to happen. You feel a strange, gentle lightness. It may not be strong, but it's there, like a whisper in your soul, a subtle release. As you let go of the burdens of expectation, the weight of identity, the strain of performance, you begin to feel free. You no longer need to explain who you are. You no longer feel the urge to meet every standard. You realize you can just be. You may not have all the answers yet. You might still be navigating the fog. But inside, something tells you that what's coming is more authentic than anything you've known before. And that quiet trust, that deep inner knowing, is the true beginning of your spiritual rebirth. The third internal transformation, the uncontrollable need to find a deeper purpose. After you've questioned who you really are and stripped away the labels that once defined you, something inevitable begins to stir within. It's not just a fleeting thought or a random feeling, it's a deep and undeniable sensation of emptiness, paired with an urgent need to discover something more meaningful, something more real. Simply existing no longer feels like enough. Going through the motions, living on autopilot, chasing the goals society has handed you, it all starts to feel hollow. There's a quiet, persistent whisper from deep within, telling you there is something more, something that has been patiently waiting for you at the core of your being. This shift doesn't come from the mind. It doesn't arrive through logic or rational thought. Instead, it emerges like a pulse you can't ignore, an inner calling that tugs at you at the most unexpected moments. Suddenly, the things that once seemed important, status, validation, achievement, lose their weight. They no longer move you the way they used to. In their place, a new longing is born, a desire to understand what truly drives you, what ignites your soul, what gives your life real meaning. Success, as defined by others, no longer satisfies you. The praise, the material rewards, the structured life, they all start to feel like fragments of a script you never wrote. Now, you crave something more authentic, a connection that feels honest, raw, and true. A connection between what you do, what you think, and what you offer to the world. This is often the moment when people embark on a deep, personal quest for knowledge, for insight, for something greater than themselves. You may begin to find yourself drawn to books you never would have picked up before. Ideas that once seemed too abstract or irrelevant now seem to pulse with life. Conversations that used to bore you suddenly spark curiosity. You might be pulled toward philosophy, spirituality, psychology, subjects you never thought you'd explore. It's as if your mind is expanding, being pulled toward a new dimension, shaking itself free from the inertia that kept you stuck for so long. And yet, what's most fascinating about this journey is that while you're reaching outward, searching for answers in every possible direction, a subtle realization begins to take root. The answers aren't out there. They're within you. Always have been. This isn't about finding a single universal truth. It's about discovering what resonates with you, what stirs something deep inside, what awakens that dormant spark that has been waiting for your attention. This need to find a deeper purpose isn't something you can switch off. It becomes a steady hum in the background of your life, a constant presence. You might catch yourself pondering the meaning of everything while doing the most mundane tasks, or you might find yourself oddly unsatisfied in situations that used to bring comfort or normalcy. It's as if your inner world is demanding a shift, urging you toward change, but without providing a clear roadmap. The frustration of this undefined yearning can be intense. You begin to notice that the goals that once motivated you no longer carry the same energy. Accumulating success, wealth, recognition, none of it feels complete anymore. Not because those things are bad or wrong, but because they feel like shadows of something much larger, something intangible you haven't yet uncovered. It's a sensation of walking without direction, yet feeling certain that there's a destination waiting for you. You can't see it, but you know it's there, and that knowing keeps you moving forward, even through uncertainty. This transformation also shows up in the way you consume information. You start seeking answers in places you never considered before. You explore philosophies that challenge everything you've believed. You question whether the life you've been living is truly yours or merely a reflection of societal expectations. The deeper you go, the more you realize that external answers are never enough. You read, you study, you listen, hoping for clarity. But the emptiness doesn't go away, not because there are no answers, but because your soul is guiding you elsewhere, inward. Many people become discouraged at this point. They treat purpose like a destination, like a fixed goal that must be achieved. But the truth is, purpose isn't a single answer waiting to be found. It's a continuous unfolding. It's about experimenting, feeling, aligning with what makes your spirit come alive. It's about learning to trust your intuition, to follow the signs the universe places before you. And if you pay attention, you may begin to notice patterns. People enter your life at just the right moment, bearing messages that feel tailored just for you. Events unfold in ways that force you to make pivotal decisions. Moments of silence arise, filled with a strange anticipation, as if something is on the verge of being revealed. These aren't coincidences, they're signals. They're part of a deep internal recalibration, guiding you, shaping you, helping you uncover what you're truly meant to discover. But here's the hardest part: patience. In this modern world of instant gratification, we want answers now. We want to know our purpose today. We want clarity, direction, certainty. But true transformation doesn't obey our timelines. It requires surrender. It demands that we release the urge to control and allow things to unfold naturally. It's as if life itself is preparing you for something sacred, but before revealing it, it needs to know you're ready to receive it. And somewhere in the middle of this fog of uncertainty, something begins to shift. A subtle but powerful feeling arises. Even if you don't have all the answers, there's a deep sense that you're exactly where you need to be. You start letting go of the desperate chase for an external purpose and begin connecting with what truly makes you feel alive. You find joy in the process. You start trusting the journey. And when that happens, when you stop searching and start feeling, something magical unfolds. The answers begin to appear, quietly, naturally, and without force. Fourth, inner change. Disconnection from the past and old versions of yourself. As you move forward in this transformation process, you begin to notice a natural distance growing between you and your past. It's not about forgetting what you've lived through, but about realizing that you're no longer the same person. It feels as though you're shedding old skin, leaving behind an identity that no longer fits. The experiences that once defined your life now seem to belong to someone else. You can remember who you were a few years ago, but that version no longer aligns with who you're becoming. Thoughts, beliefs, and habits that once felt permanent now begin to fall apart. What you once considered important now feels irrelevant. At this stage, your emotions also begin to shift. Old wounds don't hurt in the same way anymore. Situations that once triggered anger, sadness, or frustration now feel distant, almost as if you're watching them from the outside. It's not because you've ignored them, but because your perspective has evolved. It's as if a part of you is naturally releasing the weight of what you lived through. This disconnection from the past also affects how you relate to others. Some friendships, relationships, or dynamics that were once essential now feel forced, not because of any visible conflict, but because you no longer share the same energy or interests. Sometimes this is hard to accept, because it means acknowledging that certain connections have simply run their course. Yet the most curious part of this internal shift is that although it can bring nostalgia, it also carries a sense of liberation. You begin to feel lighter, less tied to who you were, and more open to who you're becoming. Even if you're unsure of what's next, you know you're moving towards something far more aligned with your true self. This disconnection doesn't happen abruptly. At first, it's subtle, almost imperceptible. You begin noticing small changes in how you react to situations that used to affect you deeply. Emotional wounds no longer hold the same power. Offenses that once hurt you now seem irrelevant, and the worries that once consumed your thoughts begin to lose their grip. It's as though you're watching your life from a new perspective, with an emotional distance that allows you to understand that everything you've experienced had a purpose, but you no longer need to carry it. It's not that you forget the past, but that it no longer defines you. Moments that once felt crucial now seem like mere chapters in a story that brought you here, but no longer determine who you are. This change is also reflected in your surroundings. You start noticing that people you once resonated with now seem to be on completely different paths. There's no direct conflict, just a growing emptiness in conversations, a lack of flow in interactions, a fading connection. You might try to revive these relationships, but something inside you knows the energy is no longer the same. And this is when nostalgia creeps in. Sometimes your mind tries to hold on to what's familiar, memories that once gave you comfort, versions of yourself that were accepted by others. But when you try to fit back into those spaces, you realize you no longer belong there. Not because anything is wrong with you or with them, but because your growth has led you in a new direction. This distancing from the past also shifts how you perceive your achievements and failures. What once felt like a great victory now seems like just another step. What once seemed like a huge disappointment now feels like a necessary lesson. Your view of success and failure changes entirely as you understand that none of those experiences truly define you. And here, an inevitable question arises. If I'm no longer who I used to be, then who am I now? This becomes a moment of deep introspection. As you let go of the labels and beliefs that once shaped you, you face the uncertainty of discovering your true self. But here's the key. It's not about finding a new fixed identity. It's about allowing yourself to evolve without the constraints of your past. During this phase, you may find yourself drawn to solitude, not because you feel lonely, but because you need space to reconnect with yourself. You prefer introspection over distractions. You seek answers within, rather than outside, and you feel the need to be in places that offer peace, not noise. And while this process may feel uncertain, there's something freeing about it. For the first time, you feel the freedom to reinvent yourself, to choose your path without the weight of past influences, without the expectations that once limited you. This disconnection from who you were isn't a loss. It's the opportunity to create something far more authentic. This is when you realize that the past doesn't define you. It simply prepared you for what's coming. Fifth, internal shift. Heightened sensitivity and a stronger connection to your intuition. As you detach from the past and the identity you once clung to, something unexpected begins to unfold. Your senses sharpen, and your intuition grows more powerful. You start to perceive the world in a deeper, more vivid way, as though something within you has awakened, enabling you to notice details that once escaped your awareness. Places, people, and situations are no longer things you just see. Now, you feel them with greater intensity. You can sense the energy of a room the moment you walk in. You pick up on people's intentions without them speaking a word. You begin to experience a profound connection to your environment. But this intuition doesn't only show up in what you detect externally. It also manifests as sudden thoughts, strange sensations, and gut feelings that defy logic yet demand your attention. Out of nowhere, you just know which path to take, who to approach, or which decision to avoid, without having a rational explanation for it. At first, this sensory awakening can feel overwhelming. You experience both the good and the bad with more force. What you once tolerated without issue now becomes uncomfortable. Sounds, crowds, shallow conversations, or spaces filled with tension affect you in ways they never did before. It's during this phase that many people feel an intense urge for calm, for nature, for spaces that transmit peace. You begin to seek more quiet moments, not because you're escaping the world, but because you need the space to process everything you're feeling. And the most powerful part of this change is that you begin to trust your intuition in ways you never have. You stop needing endless rational explanations to make choices. You can feel when something is right or wrong, even if you can't put it into words. And when you begin to follow this inner guidance, you realize that everything in your life begins to flow more naturally. This intensified sensitivity is no accident. It's a natural recalibration of your perception that takes place as part of a spiritual rebirth. It's as if, by shedding the layers of conditioning that once masked your true essence, you can now feel life more purely, more directly. Connections become more real, messages from the universe clearer, and choices more instinctive. But this transformation also brings challenges. Feeling more intensely also means you're more aware of the energies around you. Suddenly, certain people or situations that once seemed fine now feel heavy. Crowded or noisy places drain you quickly. Shallow talk loses all appeal, and you find yourself drawn to depth, to what truly nourishes your soul. What's most fascinating is that, although this hypersensitivity may feel like a burden at first, you soon realize it's actually a gift. Your intuition becomes a trusted compass, guiding you toward what truly serves your growth and away from what no longer does, and something inside you shifts. For the first time, you stop relying solely on logic to make decisions. You begin to trust your feelings. You learn to read signs, to listen to your body, to recognize when an opportunity is real and when something just isn't meant for you. The more you follow this intuition, the more aligned your life becomes. This is one of the clearest signs that you're going through a spiritual awakening. You no longer make choices based on fear or the need for external validation. You now follow a more authentic path, one guided by your own inner wisdom. And even though the path isn't always clear, you feel an unshakable certainty that everything is unfolding as it should. At this point, you look back and realize how much you've changed. The things that once defined you are gone. Life no longer feels like a loop of old patterns, but rather an open field of endless possibilities. Instead of feeling lost, you feel more aligned than ever. And even though you don't have all the answers, you've stopped searching for them outside of yourself. That's the true essence of a spiritual rebirth. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you really are. If this message has resonated with you, and you feel like you're going through this process, take a deep breath and remember, you are not alone. Transformation is not a race. It unfolds at its own pace, in its own time, and in its own way. Just like nature follows its rhythm, the seasons changing, the tides flowing in and out, your inner journey also follows a unique rhythm that cannot be forced or compared to anyone else's. There is no single path that fits all. Your experiences, your wounds, your growth, and your awakening are entirely yours, and that makes your journey sacred. Sometimes, the process may feel confusing or even painful. There might be moments when everything seems to fall apart, and you begin to question everything you once believed. But that is exactly where the transformation begins. In the darkness of doubt, the seed of wisdom takes root. In the silence of solitude, the voice of your soul starts to whisper. Trust the signs that life places in your path, no matter how small they may seem. A song you suddenly hear, a dream that stays with you after waking up, a conversation that stirs something deep inside. These are not coincidences. They are messages, subtle nudges from your higher self, guiding you gently forward. And above all, trust your intuition. That quiet inner knowing is the most honest compass you have. The mind can doubt, the world can distract, but your intuition remains a steady flame, lighting the path even in the darkest nights. You don't need to have all the answers right now. Sometimes, just allowing yourself to feel, to pause, and to be is enough. There is ancient wisdom within you, buried beneath layers of conditioning and fear. It's the same wisdom that Carl Jung spoke of, the process of individuation, of becoming who you truly are, beyond masks, expectations, and roles. As you begin to embrace your shadows, to integrate your past, and to reclaim your authentic self, you'll realize that the journey itself is the destination. So stay open, keep exploring, keep learning. Every experience is a teacher, every emotion a messenger, every challenge a doorway. Growth is not linear, it spirals. You may revisit old wounds, old patterns, but each time you return with more awareness, more strength, more light. We are here walking this path with you. This community exists to remind you that awakening doesn't have to be lonely. By sharing our stories, our questions, and our insights, we help each other remember what we already know deep down, that we are enough, that we are evolving, and that we are never truly alone. If you felt a connection with this message, consider staying with us. Subscribe to our channel for more content about spiritual awakening, personal growth, and the timeless teachings of Carl Jung. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you won't miss what's coming next. We'll see you in the next step of this journey. Have you ever felt that the closer you get to your true self, the more distant some familiar faces become? Maybe you've blamed yourself for not fitting in, for no longer feeling the same connection, or for letting go of relationships that once meant the world to you. But what if I told you that you're not losing people? You're finally finding yourself. There comes a moment in life, often after weathering countless storms, when the mask you've worn starts to weigh too heavily. The things you once tolerated begin to feel like thorns in your soul. It's not arrogance, it's not emotional coldness. It's the quiet, undeniable call of your true self, urging you to come home. Today marks the beginning of a journey, a return, not to the past, but to the essence of who you are. This is not a story of endings, it's a story of rebirth. Because when the soul awakens, some presences fade, and others were never meant to stay. There comes a day, though you might not know exactly when you wake up and something just doesn't feel right anymore. Conversations begin to feel hollow, laughter sounds rehearsed, and the people who once lit up your world now only add noise. Have you ever felt that strange sense of disconnect, like you're drifting away from everything and everyone? Sometimes it starts with disappointment, other times it's a quiet betrayal, and sometimes it's just the exhaustion of pretending for too long. And then, without asking for permission, something inside you begins to shift. Slowly, life starts to clear the path ahead. People drift away, bonds unravel, relationships that once felt eternal dissolve quietly, without drama. And you, lost in confusion, start to question everything. Is it me? Am I the one failing? Am I being too much or not enough? Have I forgotten how to love? But behind that ache is a deeper truth, one you may not have seen yet. You're not losing people. You're simply refusing to abandon yourself any longer. You're no longer silencing your voice just to keep the peace. No longer saying yes when everything inside you screamed no. No longer shrinking yourself to keep someone else from leaving. Every time you did that, you betrayed a part of you. But now, your soul is awakening. It's bringing you back home. Loss in this light isn't an ending. It's a beginning. It's life whispering in your ear. You don't need to pretend anymore. You can be who you truly are now. There's a kind of pain that doesn't burn, but cleanses. Not the pain that destroys, but the one that reveals. It's the aching emptiness after someone walks away. And yet deep down, you know they no longer belonged in your new world. Maybe you cried for them. Maybe you begged them to stay. Maybe you tried to hold on to something that had already crumbled, just to avoid facing abandonment again. But then came the moment when your soul said, enough. And when the soul speaks, the ego trembles, because the ego wants to control, to hold on, to understand. But the soul, The soul only wants to be free. Every relationship that ends during this process is not a loss. It's a purification, like pulling weeds from a garden. At first, it hurts to tear out the roots, but only then can something real grow. Can you see it now? You're not losing people. You're losing the desperate need to be accepted at any cost. You're shedding the mask you wore to belong. And though it hurts, it's one of the purest acts of self-love, because some connections ask you to stop being yourself just to remain in them. And when you finally decide not to do that anymore, they collapse under their own weight. That's not rejection, it's coherence. And in the empty space that remains, maybe lonely at first, a new seed begins to sprout, the seed of your authenticity. There's a quiet moment, subtle and almost invisible, when you realize that the person you lost wasn't truly aligned with who you are now. That's not contempt. It's not pride. It's just the truth. For years, you built your identity around what others expected from you. You shaped yourself to be liked, to belong, to avoid being alone. But something has changed. You can't keep playing that role anymore. When the soul wakes up, it becomes selective. It can no longer stand fakeness, emotional games, empty conversations. It starts rejecting what doesn't resonate with its essence. And that comes with a cost. Some people will leave. But the beautiful thing is, it's not you who pushes them away. Life gently removes them, like dry leaves carried off by the wind. Have you noticed? Some people stop calling. Some friendships dissolve without conflict. That's not a loss. That's realignment. You're not losing. You're letting go of old versions of yourself, and with them, the people who only fit those outdated identities. And then, something magical happens. You start to attract what once seemed impossible. Relationships with soul, with truth, with depth. Because once you stop pretending, you become a magnet for authenticity. After someone leaves, what remains is silence. Not just any silence, but one that lingers, that wraps itself around you, heavy and profound. It's the echo of every word left unspoken, every embrace that never happened, every ending that never got a goodbye. And in that silence, many panic. They run from the emptiness. They try to fill it with distractions, new people, new stimuli, anything to avoid feeling. But you are making a choice, a quiet, courageous, and profound choice. You are choosing to stay, to sit still in the middle of that silence and actually listen to it. Do you know how incredibly brave that is? Because that silence, that emptiness, is not just the absence of someone else. It's the unraveling of a version of you that existed to hold them, to carry the weight of their presence. It's the version of you who stayed quiet just to be liked. The version who said yes out of fear of abandonment, who preferred shallow company to the terrifying thought of facing your own solitude. That version of you was always negotiating, always bending, always shrinking. And now that they're gone, whoever they were, part of you is gone too. The part that only knew itself through another. That's the part that hurts. That's what makes the silence so loud. But as you remain with yourself, as you refuse to run, to numb, to distract, something powerful begins to happen. It's like a slow, ancient alchemy. No, the pain doesn't vanish. It doesn't dissolve like sugar in water. But it does transform. It stops being punishment and starts becoming a teacher. The sharp ache that once screamed now begins to whisper truths. Quiet, honest truths that you couldn't hear before. And one of those truths is this: not everyone who leaves your life hurts you. Some people save you by walking away. In their absence, they gift you freedom. They carve a path back to yourself, a self that was buried under layers of pretending, pleasing, and surviving. So stay there. Stay a little longer in that silence. Don't rush to fill the void with noise or people or distractions, because in that empty space, something extraordinary is happening. That's where your real self begins to emerge, slowly, awkwardly, like a seed breaking through the soil. It's fragile, yes, but it's also true. Every relationship, whether romantic, platonic, or familial, is an invisible exchange. You give a piece of yourself to feel like you belong. You mold yourself, chip away your edges, polish your roughness just to be accepted. And sometimes, without realizing it, you begin to hollow out. You lose your spark, your essence, your soul. On the outside, everything looks normal. You smile. You show up. You say, "I'm fine," even when you're breaking inside. You laugh when it hurts. You remain silent when something wounds you. You pretend you're okay, just so others don't feel uncomfortable. You become a version of yourself that's easier for others to digest. But there comes a sacred, terrifying moment when you simply can't do it anymore. The act becomes too heavy. The mask begins to crack, and the persona you've carefully crafted no longer holds. And then life, in its infinite, ruthless wisdom, begins to strip away everything that isn't real. It doesn't ask for permission. It just starts unraveling the illusions, and you're left with the truth, raw, unfiltered, and sometimes devastating. What hurts the most about losing people isn't always the loss itself. It's the shattering of the fantasy you built with them. It's the realization that they didn't love your essence. They loved the performance. They loved the version of you that was convenient, agreeable, useful. And that realization cuts deep, but it also liberates you. Because once the mask falls, the false begins to disappear. And with it, so do the people who were only drawn to the image of you. The you that made them feel comfortable, not the real, messy, evolving you. The ones who stayed out of convenience, routine, or what you represented, not out of true connection. And what's left? You. Just you. Exposed, raw, honest, but also strong. Ready. Finally prepared to connect with others from a place of truth instead of performance. Jung once said, "The persona is a system of adaptation to the world, but individuation begins when we stop being what others expect." And this is the beginning of that journey, the path of truth, the path of relationships without masks, the path of love without the sacrifice of your soul. At first, everything that breaks feels like a disaster. A relationship, a friendship, a bond you thought would last forever. It all shatters, and you stand there, surrounded by the wreckage, wondering if you can survive the weight of it all. But let me tell you something, from the deepest part of my heart, no breakage comes without a revelation. What falls apart, what disintegrates, shows you what can no longer hold. And that, my friend, is not failure. It's clarity, a painful kind of clarity, but clarity nonetheless. Have you ever felt like you gave everything, your time, your love, your energy, and still it wasn't enough? That you emptied yourself trying to fill someone else, and in the end, all you were left with was your own silence. That wasn't weakness. That wasn't foolishness. That was your soul whispering, "This isn't where you belong." Even if your ego couldn't understand it, your soul knew. Some loves only enter our lives to illuminate the wounds we haven't healed. Every person who leaves takes with them a chapter of your story, but they also leave behind a mirror, a reflection of who you were, what you gave, and what it's time to release. And in that strange, sacred place of loss, something unexpected happens. You discover your strength, not the kind of strength that roars, but the kind that breathes, the kind that's been sleeping inside you, waiting for the moment you touched rock bottom and realized you were still alive. Life doesn't take things from you just to punish you. It frees you from what no longer serves your growth. Nobody tells you this, but being your authentic self, really being yourself, is deeply uncomfortable at first. It's not immediate freedom. It's not bliss or light. It's fear. It's disorientation. It's like walking barefoot across unfamiliar terrain, every step uncertain and strange. Because when you stop pleasing, people disappear. When you start speaking your truth, some take offense. And when you choose your peace over keeping up appearances, others will call you selfish. Sound familiar? That is when the real test begins. Are you truly willing to stay with yourself, even if it means walking alone for a while? Do you have the courage to hold your truth, even when no one is clapping, even when the applause falls silent, and the world turns its back? Being yourself isn't just about authenticity, it's an act of bravery. It's about daring to disappoint expectations, to break unspoken agreements, to stop living someone else's story and begin writing your own. It's a rebellion against everything you were told you had to be in order to be accepted. And yes, it will hurt at first. The silence will be heavy, the absence will sting, and the loneliness will echo. But slowly, something begins to emerge from that silence. A peace that doesn't depend on another person. A joy that isn't loud, but bubbles up gently from within. A feeling of being at home, even when no one else is there. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And that privilege begins the moment you stop performing. The moment you finally choose to be you. There's a kind of solitude that isn't punishment. It's medicine. A solitude that doesn't crush you, but restores you. That doesn't abandon you, but returns you to yourself. When you've lost people, let go of bonds that once defined you. You arrive at a quiet space where everything seems to pause. Most people run from that place. They sprint toward noise, distraction, the familiar and the shallow. But you chose to stay. You, watching this right now, made the brave decision to remain. And that, dear heart, is what courage looks like. In that solitude, the reconstruction begins. You begin to see yourself without filters, to hear yourself without noise, to touch parts of you that you had buried under companionship and validation. And in that sacred silence, you realize something important. Many of your past relationships were nothing more than a shelter to avoid facing yourself. They were distractions disguised as connections, attempts to avoid looking inward. But when there's no one left to please, no one to care for, no one to blame, you begin to discover who you are without roles, without dependencies, without disguises. It's uncomfortable, it's raw, but it's also revealing. Because in that fertile stillness, the voice of your soul begins to rise. And slowly, what once felt like emptiness transforms into something sacred. You are no longer alone. You are with yourself. And in that companionship, a new kind of love is born. A love that doesn't come from lack, but from wholeness. Not every ending is a failure. Some doors close quietly, without a bang, without drama, without explanation. And though it may feel like rejection at first, it's often protection. When your soul begins to grow, your energy shifts. You stop resonating with the same things. The superficial no longer excites you. What you once tolerated becomes unbearable, and then something inevitable happens. Life starts closing off access to everything that no longer aligns with who you're becoming. People who used to crave your presence no longer reach out. Places that once felt like home now feel foreign. Conversations you used to enjoy now seem meaningless. It's as if part of your identity is slowly dissolving, and with it, old bonds fade, routines crumble, and even dreams you once held dear begin to feel outdated. But this is not coincidence, it's evolution. Because when the soul awakens, it can no longer live in the same old spaces. It needs breath, it needs truth, it needs depth. And often, to reach that depth, it must let go. Jung said, "What you fail to bring to consciousness appears in your life as fate." These doors closing right now are the threshold to a more conscious life. Trust that what's leaving is leaving because its time is up. And what is on its way is coming with the same clarity that something within you now whispers, "I can no longer stay where I am, not myself." There are griefs that aren't about losing someone else, but about leaving behind a version of yourself. A version that was excellent at surviving, but never really knew how to live. That version of you who smiled to keep the peace, who stayed silent to avoid conflict, who carried inherited fears and outdated beliefs. No one prepares you for this type of mourning. You cry without knowing why. A faceless melancholy takes hold of you. You feel nostalgia for a life that no longer fits. You are shedding who you used to be in order to become who you truly are. And yes, it hurts. It hurts because it means detaching from even what worked. It means saying goodbye to habits, routines, relationships, even accomplishments that were all built by a self that no longer resides in you. Does any of this sound familiar? Maybe you've been quieter lately, more selective with your energy, more introspective. That's not depression. That's not disconnection. That's your soul rearranging itself. That's your deep self recalibrating everything to align with your inner truth. And in the middle of what seems like chaos, something sacred is happening. You're finding your way back to yourself. Carl Jung said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." The same applies when you finally meet yourself. So don't be afraid if you feel like you're no longer who you once were. This isn't loss, it's rebirth. The birth of your most authentic self. When everything falls apart, when people walk away, when silence covers everything, that's when the shadow appears. Not to frighten you, but to be seen. Not to punish you, but to show you what's always been there, waiting for your attention. The shadow is not evil. It's unexpressed pain, unattended wounds, the parts of you you learned to hide so others would accept you. And what happens when there's no one left to please? The shadow speaks, and it tells you uncomfortable truths. It tells you you've abandoned yourself, that you've loved others more than you've ever loved yourself, that you've tolerated what should have never been accepted. And yes, it hurts, but it also sets you free. Because what remains unspoken repeats itself. What stays hidden ends up controlling you from the shadows. This moment where you feel alone, where everything is uncertain, is the perfect stage to face that rejected part of you. Not to judge it, but to integrate it. Because you cannot be whole if you're at war with your own darkness. Jung said it clearly. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Today, in your solitude, in your silence, you have a chance. Don't run from your shadow. Embrace it. Listen to it. Because only by accepting it can you truly be free. Letting go hurts, but letting go with resentment poisons you. Because when someone leaves and your heart is filled with bitterness, you're not truly freeing yourself. You're chaining your soul to something that no longer exists. It's natural to feel anger. It's human to remember the pain. But there comes a point in your inner journey when you understand that forgiveness is not for the other person. It's for you. It's not about justifying the unjustifiable or forgetting the moments that left a mark on your story. It's about releasing the burden of carrying emotions that no longer serve your growth or peace. Why keep reliving what broke you over and over in your mind? Why continue feeding pain if you already understood that the connection had no future? Letting go without resentment means understanding that each person acted from their own level of consciousness. And so did you. You acted from your wounds, from your fears, from your deep desire to love and be loved. And in recognizing that they failed you, you also acknowledged that you failed yourself when you stayed in a place that no longer reflected who you truly were. But this truth doesn't punish. It sets you free. Carl Jung once said, "What you deny submits you. What you accept transforms you." Acceptance is not surrender. It's not weakness. It is choosing to stop fighting a reality that already exists. It's choosing to look back, not with bitterness, but with gratitude for the lessons learned. And from that gratitude, walking forward, lighter, wiser, and more aligned with who you are. Some of the most powerful decisions we ever make are not the loud ones. They don't come with fanfare. They whisper. But those whispers can shift the course of your entire life. Choosing peace is one of them. And sometimes, in order to have peace, you must close certain doors. You have to silence the noise. You must let go of people. And yes, many times peace is not found in the presence of others, but in solitude. Because there are connections that disrupt your balance more than silence ever could. There are "I love yous" that feel more like chains. There are embraces that suffocate rather than comfort. Choosing peace is no longer explaining yourself, no longer needing to justify your limits. It's realizing that you don't need chaos or conflict to validate your decision. Have you ever felt a strange sense of relief after a separation, even though it hurt? That deep sigh that rises from the soul. That is the sound of your truth finally breathing freely. Not everyone will understand. Some will say you've become cold. Others will think you've changed. But the truth is different. The truth is that you simply stopped negotiating your inner peace. Carl Jung also said, "Freedom is achieved when you no longer need the approval of others." And that kind of freedom often comes dressed as solitude. But it's a sacred solitude. One that doesn't leave you empty, but cleanses you. One that doesn't isolate you, but protects you. Choosing peace means choosing yourself. And that, more than anything else, is the most profound act of self-love you can give. When you stop pretending, the world begins to shift. Not because everything outside changes, but because your inner world starts to vibrate on a different frequency. And as if the universe responds to your authenticity, new souls begin to arrive. People who don't want to mold you, who don't want to fix you, who feel at ease just by being in your presence, exactly as you are. They don't show up immediately. First, life empties you. It strips away everything. It leaves you standing alone, open-handed, vulnerable. But then, slowly, new energies begin to enter. They're quieter, deeper, more real. Souls that have also walked through shadows, who know what pain feels like, who no longer want to play games. They cherish silence just as much as they value a truthful word. With them, you don't have to impress anyone. You don't need masks. Your presence is enough. Your essence is enough. And in that realization, you finally understand why you had to lose so much, why you had to be alone, why it hurt so deeply to awaken. It was all necessary. The soil had to be cleared. The roots had to be pulled. The pain had to be felt. So that new relationships could bloom. Not perfect ones, but conscious ones. Not eternal, but real. Carl Jung expressed it with profound wisdom. Find the people who make you feel like you can be yourself without effort. Those people are your true home. Your authenticity is like a lighthouse. It doesn't chase, it simply shines. And sooner or later, it draws in those who are walking toward the same kind of light. Now, as you look back from where you are today, you might realize something powerful. It wasn't a loss, it was a liberation. You didn't lose people. You lost an old version of yourself. The version that stayed quiet out of fear. The one that settled for emotional crumbs. The one that begged for love, disguised as attention, affection, or companionship. That version of you no longer exists. And with it, many people had to leave too. And that's okay, because you are no longer who you once were. Today, you live in a body that is more aware, more awake, a heart that has become more discerning, more protective of its energy. A soul that finally understands it deserves deep, healthy connections, relationships rooted in truth, in silence that doesn't feel heavy, in presence that doesn't demand masks, a soul that craves glances free of judgment. Today, you no longer cling to what hurts just because you're afraid of being alone. You now understand that solitude can be a companion, not a punishment. You've learned that letting go of those who never truly saw you isn't abandonment. It's self-worth. It's self-recognition. And from this inner truth, you can finally say, with peace in your heart, I'm not losing people. I'm returning to myself. Carl Jung once said, a life not lived is a disease from which one can die. And you've chosen to live. You've chosen to awaken. You've chosen to be. And that, right there, is the greatest gift you could ever give yourself. To be you. Not a version shaped by others' expectations. Not a self edited to be accepted. But your raw, real, honest self. Even if that means starting again, with fewer people, but with more soul. So ask yourself, did you really lose people? Or did you finally let go of what no longer aligned with your truth? Who were you when they loved you? And more importantly, who are you now that you've chosen to love yourself? Take a moment. Close your eyes. Just breathe. Feel the space inside you that used to be crowded with fear, with anxiety, with the desperate need to be seen or loved. Feel it now. Feel how that space, even if it aches, is filled with air, with clarity, with spirit. Maybe this message touched something deep within you. Maybe you saw yourself in more than one sentence. If you did, then let me remind you of this. You are not alone. There are thousands of souls out there, quietly waking up, just like you, choosing peace over performance, healing their roots, reclaiming their dignity. And together, even in silence, we are rising. If this message reached you at a difficult time in your life, if it resonated with you when everything seemed uncertain or overwhelming, I invite you, from the bottom of my heart, to consider supporting us with a super like. It may seem like a small gesture, but it has the power to sustain this space, this channel that strives every day to reach more souls, to create content that doesn't just inform or entertain, but truly connects, content that speaks from the soul, that embraces truth, and that honors the essence of our shared humanity. Behind every video, there is a story. There is a moment of silence that turned into reflection, a moment of pain that became light, a wound that began to heal simply because someone felt seen, heard, and understood. That is what we try to do here. We don't just publish words or images. We build a bridge that connects your inner world with someone else's. And maybe, just maybe, in that connection, something begins to shift within you. A burden feels lighter. A thought becomes clearer. A part of you that was dormant begins to awaken. If anything we've created has helped you take a deep breath when you felt like you couldn't breathe, if our words have guided you as you faced your own darkness, if this channel has served as a beacon during your emotional storms, then please remember that your support means more than you can imagine. It allows us to continue walking alongside you and countless others on their journey home, toward their truest and most authentic selves. And if you haven't yet, I encourage you to subscribe. Be part of this community that believes in healing, truth, and transformation. We're not here by chance. We're all part of this collective awakening. Each of us walks our own path, learning to let go of what no longer serves us, daring to be who we truly are, despite the noise, fear, and doubt. In the comments, I invite you to share. What have you released on your own journey to your true self? What old story, fear, or identity did you leave behind to make way for the person you are becoming? Your words could be just what someone else needs to read today. We heal in community. We grow when we witness each other's truth. We remember who we are when someone dares to share who they are. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing this moment, for opening your heart, for walking this path with us. There are moments in life when you find yourself questioning whether the person in front of you is truly the right one. And I'm not just talking about romantic relationships. This applies to any deep connection with another human being. Friendships, business partners, mentors, or even those people who seem to have entered your life at just the right moment. But how can you tell if they are truly aligned with you? Carl Jung dedicated a large part of his life to studying the unconscious and how it shapes our relationships. For him, nothing we experience is mere coincidence. The people who enter our lives don't do so randomly. More often than not, they are manifestations of internal processes we have yet to fully understand. Have you ever felt an inexplicable connection with someone? Maybe you can rationalize it, but there's something about their energy, their presence, or their way of being that resonates with you on a nearly magical level. Jung would say that this feeling is a manifestation of synchronicity, a moment where the internal and the external align perfectly. It's as if the universe is sending you a signal that this person has an important role to play in your life. But how do you distinguish between a genuine connection and a fleeting illusion? This is where understanding the unconscious becomes essential. Jung believed that our relationships act as mirrors of our inner world. If you find yourself constantly surrounded by people who challenge you in destructive ways, drain your energy, or make you feel insufficient, it's not just bad luck. It's an invitation from your unconscious to look inward, to ask yourself what part of you is allowing or even attracting these dynamics. When someone is truly right for you, You will know because there won't be a constant struggle between who you are and who you feel you need to be. Truly meaningful relationships do not force you to betray your essence. You won't feel the need to hide parts of yourself, to mold yourself into someone else's expectations, or to force a connection that does not flow naturally. Instead, that person will make you feel seen, understood, and accepted. And not because they idealize you, but because their presence reflects the connection you have with yourself. Jung spoke about individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, beyond masks and social expectations. When you are on the path of individuation, you begin to attract people who are aligned with your truth, not because they magically appear in your life, but because now you have the clarity to recognize them and the courage to let go of those who no longer resonate with you. Think about it. How many times have you held on to relationships that deep down you knew weren't good for you? Relationships where conflict was constant, where you felt you had to fight for every small display of affection, where simply being yourself seemed to be a problem. This doesn't mean that the other person is bad or that you are wrong. It simply means there is a misalignment, a disconnect between who you are and what the relationship demands you to be. Before we continue, I want to take a moment to let you know that my book is now available. It's filled with advice and techniques to help you overcome emotional blockages and cultivate self-love. You can find the link in the description and the pinned comment. Now, let's continue. Jung reminds us that the unconscious is always seeking balance. If you spend your life chasing relationships that drain you, at some point, your mind and body will send you signals that something is off. Maybe you start feeling anxious, exhausted, or unmotivated. Perhaps you even experience physical symptoms, insomnia, unexplained aches, or constant fatigue. All of these are ways in which your being is screaming for change. That's why, when someone is truly right for you, you will know. Not because everything will be perfect, not because there will never be disagreements or difficult moments, but because their presence won't make you feel like you are in a constant battle. With them, you will experience something deeper, an ease, a sense of belonging, a connection that doesn't require you to sacrifice who you are. And that is how you know. Something that Jung considered essential for emotional well-being is harmony. But there is something even deeper. Jung believed that true connection with another human being happens when our souls recognize each other. This may sound mystical, but in reality, it makes perfect sense. Throughout our lives, we accumulate experiences, wounds, and lessons. Often, without even realizing it, we seek in others something that helps us heal. If someone enters your life and awakens a sense of growth and expansion within you, if they inspire you to be more of yourself rather than shrink to fit in, that is a sign that something meaningful is happening. However, this does not necessarily mean that person is meant to stay forever. Some connections are meant to accompany us for a while before continuing on their own path. But while they are in our lives, their presence leaves an impact that goes beyond words. On the other hand, if you constantly find yourself in relationships where you feel the need to prove your worth, where the fear of abandonment or rejection dictates your actions, then it is time to ask yourself, what part of me needs to be healed? Are you choosing these relationships out of self-love, or are they rooted in the fear of being alone? Jung believed that loneliness is not something to be feared, but rather a sacred space where we can meet ourselves. When you learn to be at peace with who you are, you stop desperately searching for someone else to fill your voids. And it is at that moment, when you are no longer looking for someone to complete you, that the most authentic relationships begin to appear. The secret is not in finding the right person. The real secret is becoming the most authentic version of yourself. Because when you do that, the right connections will emerge naturally. You won't need to force anything. You won't need to convince anyone that you are worthy of love. You simply are. And that is enough. If you have ever felt that someone entered your life at just the right moment, that their presence brought clarity, peace, or even the necessary challenge to push you toward growth, do not ignore it. Life is full of synchronicities, of signs that guide us if we learn to listen. But the key lies in introspection, in knowing yourself, in understanding your patterns, in recognizing what you are truly looking for in a relationship, and most importantly, in having the courage to let go of what no longer resonates with you. Carl Jung taught us that the reality we experience is a reflection of our internal world. If you want to attract the right person, you must first become the right person for yourself. The relationships we experience in life are not coincidences. Jung believed that everything that happens in our external world is a manifestation of internal processes, of aspects within us that we have yet to explore or understand. If you constantly find yourself in relationships that make you feel anxious, insecure, or empty, it is time to ask yourself, what part of my own psyche is attracting this experience? This is not magic, nor blind fate. It is the reflection of your internal world. If deep down you feel that you are not enough, you are likely to engage with people who reinforce that belief. Not because they are bad people, but because your unconscious mind seeks to confirm what it already believes to be true. The key to breaking this cycle is awareness. When you begin to recognize these patterns and understand that your relationships are mirroring your inner beliefs, you gain the power to change them. You no longer seek love to fill a void, but rather to share the love that already exists within you. And when you operate from that place, the people who enter your life will reflect that same energy back to you. So, ask yourself, am I choosing love from a place of wholeness or from a place of fear? Because the answer to that question will determine the quality of every connection you experience from this moment on. Jung explained this through the concept of projection. When we are not aware of certain aspects of our personality, we project them onto others, seeing in them what is actually a part of us. Perhaps you have found yourself in a relationship where you feel unappreciated, where the other person seems to take you for granted, demands too much from you, or simply does not truly see you. It is frustrating, even painful. But if you take a step back and observe with honesty, you might ask yourself, am I seeing in this person the reflection of something within me? Deep down, is it me who does not value myself enough? The unconscious acts in mysterious ways, but it always has a purpose: to make you aware of what you need to integrate. If you have gone through relationships where you have felt abandoned, where you had to fight for attention or love, it is possible that there is a part of you that fears rejection. Maybe at some point, you learned that affection must be earned and not simply received naturally. When a person is truly meant for you, you will know because there will not be a constant struggle to prove your worth. You will not feel the need to prove your love, loyalty, or importance. The connection will flow effortlessly, without the silent competition for recognition or affection. It will be a genuine exchange where both of you see, accept, and support each other's growth. But to get there, you must first observe your own patterns. What kind of relationships have you attracted over time? Do patterns repeat themselves? Do experiences seem to follow the same cycle? If so, it is not because you are doomed to repeat the past, but because your unconscious is trying to show you something you need to understand. Jung spoke about the importance of making the unconscious conscious, because only then will it stop controlling your life. Until you do, you will keep calling it fate. You will keep feeling trapped in situations that seem inevitable, without realizing that you actually have the power to choose something different. Imagine you are standing in front of two doors. One of them leads to the path you have always taken, the familiar one, the one that has led you to the relationships and experiences you have had so far. The other door is unknown. It fills you with uncertainty, but also with possibilities. Most people choose the first door because even if it brings pain, it is predictable. The fear of change, of the unknown, of what could happen if you choose differently, is one of the greatest limitations of human beings. But if you truly want to attract a connection that brings you peace, you must dare to walk through the second door. You cannot keep waiting for things to change while remaining the same. You cannot desire a relationship based on love if there are still parts of you that reject that love. Jung would say that before finding the right person, you must become the person who will attract that connection. And that requires inner work, the courage to face the shadows that have led you to repeat the same stories over and over again. Take a moment, pause, and think about all the relationships that have left a mark on you. Think about the patterns that have repeated, the emotions you have felt. What message lies behind all of this? What part of you is still trying to heal through your connections with others? Because here is the key. No one can heal you. No one can fill you. No one can give you what you have not given to yourself. When the right person comes, you will know, because their presence will not bring chaos or unnecessary suffering. It will be a connection that invites you to grow without destroying you in the process. It will be someone who respects your essence, who motivates you to expand rather than shrink. But to recognize that person when they arrive, you must first make sure you are not still choosing from fear, lack, or the need for external validation. Jung taught us that the journey toward true love does not begin outside of us, it begins within. The quality of our relationships is a direct reflection of the relationship we have with ourselves. When we truly know and accept ourselves, the right connections appear effortlessly, without the need to force them. So, if you've ever asked yourself, how do I know if someone is the right one? Start by asking yourself an even more important question. Am I the right one for myself? Because only from that place of authenticity and inner clarity can you recognize in another what is truly aligned with you. There is something many people misunderstand about relationships. They are not a means to fill emotional voids. They are a mirror reflecting what we carry within. Carl Jung once said that everything we experience externally originates in our internal world. So, if you want to know whether someone is the right person for you, the first question you must ask yourself is, what am I truly looking for? Perhaps you've had the experience of meeting someone at the exact right moment, someone who seemed to have all the answers, someone whose mere presence brought you peace. But as time passed, the dynamic began to change. You started noticing attitudes that didn't quite align with the image you had formed in your mind. A subtle discomfort emerged, a feeling that something wasn't right, but you tried to ignore it. You didn't want to lose the connection. At that point, your intuition was already speaking to you. But the question is, were you listening? Jung emphasized the power of intuition as a guiding force from the unconscious. The rational mind can deceive you. It can justify the unjustifiable, find reasons to hold on to something that is not good for you. But your intuition is that inner voice that doesn't require logic to know the truth. It never lies. If you feel discomfort, if there are subtle signs telling you that something doesn't fit, pay attention. Do not ignore those sensations just because you wish reality were different. When someone is truly right for you, their presence does not create a constant internal struggle. You don't feel like you have to change who you are to be accepted, nor do you feel like you're walking on eggshells to avoid conflict. One of the greatest indicators that someone is aligned with you is a sense of peace. And here's where many people get confused. They believe that an intense relationship, full of highs and lows, extreme emotions, and dramatic moments, is the ultimate proof of love. But intensity is not the same as genuine connection. True connection manifests as peace, mutual respect, and a sense of freedom within the relationship. If you look back on your life, you'll likely remember times when you ignored your intuition. There were people who, from the very beginning, showed clear signs that they were not what you truly needed. And yet, you held on. Why? Because the fear of being alone, the longing to be loved, and the need to feel like you belong can cloud your perception. Jung would say that this is the unconscious repeating patterns, attempting to heal past wounds through new relationships. Have you ever wondered why certain people enter your life at precisely the moment you are going through a significant change? It's not a coincidence. Jung spoke of synchronicity, how the universe seems to align to bring us what we need at every moment. But synchronicity does not always bring us what we want. It brings us what we need in order to evolve. Sometimes the people who enter our lives are not the one, in the romantic sense, but rather a mirror, showing us what we have yet to heal within ourselves. That is why, before asking if someone is right for you, you must ask, what is this person reflecting back to me? If their presence in your life pushes you to grow, to face your fears, to become more authentic, without feeling like you have to betray yourself, then that connection has a positive purpose. But if, on the other hand, you feel drained, constantly in conflict with yourself, filled with doubt, and in a state of emotional anxiety, that is a clear sign that this person is not aligned with your true essence. Jung teaches us that life presents us with experiences designed for our evolution, but it is up to us to recognize the signs and make decisions from a place of awareness, not fear. If you feel like you have to chase someone, like you have to constantly put in all the effort to make the relationship work, like you're walking in circles and getting nowhere, then it's time to ask yourself, am I choosing this connection out of love or out of need? True love does not require constant trials or sacrifices that make you lose yourself. A person who is truly aligned with you will never make you question your worth or put you in a position where you have to choose between being yourself and being loved. Authentic love is not a battle, nor is it an impossible puzzle to solve. It is not a game of strategies where you must calculate every move to avoid losing. Authentic love simply is. It is free. It is clear. It is sincere. If you've ever felt that peace with someone, that feeling that you can be completely yourself, without fear, without worrying that the relationship will demand you to abandon your dreams, your values, or your essence, then you have experienced what Jung would describe as a connection aligned with your deepest self. It is not dependency. It is not necessity. It is not about filling an internal void. It is simply sharing the journey with someone who resonates with the energy of who you truly are. But to reach that point, you must ask yourself an important question. Am I willing to let go of what is not meant for me. Because here's the issue. Many people say they want to find the right person, yet they are unwilling to let go of those who clearly are not. They cling, they justify, they convince themselves that with time, things will change, that the other person just needs to understand them better, that everything will improve. And in that process, they lose years of their lives holding on to something that does not allow them to grow. Jung would remind us that nothing can grow in barren soil. If you continue to nourish relationships that only bring you pain, all you are doing is perpetuating the cycle. But the moment you choose yourself, when you decide to let go of what does not allow you to be authentic, when you take the risk of being alone rather than settling for less than you deserve, something incredible happens. The right people start to appear in your life. And it's not magic. It's not coincidence. It is simply that now you are vibrating at a different frequency, one that attracts those who are truly aligned with you. If, at this moment, you are questioning whether someone in your life is the right person, pause for a moment and listen to yourself. Do not think about the fear of losing them. Do not think about the fear of being alone. Do not think about the idea of what could have been. Simply feel. Does this person bring you peace? Do you feel free in their presence? Do they inspire you to grow? Or on the contrary, do you feel like you constantly have to put in effort just to make the relationship work? Love is not a battlefield. It should not feel like a war where every day is another struggle to be seen, to be loved, to be valued. When someone is truly meant for you, you will know. Not because your mind will analyze it and approve, but because your soul will feel it. It will be something that needs no explanation, something that simply is. And if, at this moment, you feel like that person has not yet arrived in your life, do not despair. Do not search outside for what you have yet to find within yourself. Because the moment you truly choose yourself, when you value yourself without needing someone else to validate you, when you stop looking outward for what only you can find inside, then, and only then, will true love appear naturally. Jung taught us that the answers to our deepest questions are not found in the external world, but in the journey inward. And when you decide to embark on that journey, when you dare to face yourself, everything in your life begins to align. And when the right person arrives, you will know. Not because they check off a list of requirements, not because your mind will analyze and approve them, but because your being will feel it deeply, without a single doubt. When you meet the right person, it will not be a moment of uncontrollable euphoria or overwhelming obsession. It will be calm. It will be a silent certainty that settles in your heart, without the need for explanations. You will not feel indebted. You will not feel insecure. You will not feel like you have to perform emotional acrobatics to keep the connection alive. It will simply flow. And most importantly, you will feel more like yourself than ever before. Carl Jung taught us that true love is not about dependency or possession. It is about connection, mutual growth, and respect for each other's individuality. The right person will never ask you to sacrifice your dreams or change your essence just to fit into their world. Instead, they will uplift you, challenge you in a healthy way, and walk beside you without the fear of abandonment looming over every conversation. In a truly meaningful relationship, there are no power games, no constant battles for attention or validation. Instead, there is presence, real, unwavering presence. There is trust, a deep sense of belonging, and an unspoken understanding that you are valued just as you are. But here's something crucial to remember. The right person can only appear in your life when you have done the inner work to recognize them. If you remain trapped in toxic cycles, if you fear being alone, if you seek love from a place of emotional emptiness, chances are you will continue to attract relationships that reinforce those fears. Because life does not give you what you want. It gives you what you are capable of holding emotionally. The most profound truth about love is this: the healthier your relationship with yourself, the clearer it becomes who is right for you. When you stop looking for someone to complete you and instead focus on becoming whole within yourself, you attract relationships that are based on true connection rather than need. So, the next time you wonder if someone is the right one for you, pause, take a step back, and first ask yourself, am I being the right one for myself? Because when you are, the right person will not need to be searched for. They will recognize you just as easily as you recognize them. So, if right now you feel like you haven't yet found that person, don't see it as a problem. See it as an opportunity to strengthen the most important relationship you will ever have, the one with yourself. This is your chance to become the most authentic version of who you are, to release everything that no longer resonates with you, and to open yourself up to what you truly deserve. And when that person finally arrives, you will know. There will be no constant anxiety, no lingering doubts. You won't feel the need to force anything. The connection will feel natural, effortless, like coming home. In the midst of all the chaos in the world, you will have found a space where you can simply be. And that is love in its purest form. If this message resonates with you, if at any point these words have described your own story, I invite you to share your experience in the comments. Have you found that person, or are you still on the journey of discovering yourself? Your words might be the light someone else needs to read today. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, send them this video. Help me reach more people who need to understand that true love is not suffering, that healthy relationships do not require impossible sacrifices, and that the most important connection we can nurture is the one we have with ourselves. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next videos. Here, we dive deep into the human mind, the power of the unconscious, and the way our relationships reflect our personal growth. And if you'd like me to talk about a specific topic in the future, let me know in the comments. Your voice is an essential part of this community. Thank you for being here, for sharing this journey of self-discovery, and for being part of this space where growth, introspection, and personal evolution take center stage. Remember, when the right person comes along, you will know. But before you find them, make sure you have already found yourself. See you in the next video.